I'd like to welcome you back to segment 3, episode 3, installment number 3 of The Transition, which is my introductory book of From Ignorance to Education, how I went from being a regular individual, growing up in the inner cities in the 80s, experiencing a lot of the turmoil and lifestyles that so many other stories have already depicted up to this fall, but where mine takes a turn and went to a grave left was I ended up catching a homicide at 16 years old, man, and from making so many poor decisions, that homicide led me to receiving a life plus 15 to 40 year sentence, transitioning from the juvenile mentality straight to the upstate penitentiary for the rest of my life, plus 15 to 40 years, to then transitioning into having a parole eligibility after 25 years and 8 months of that duration, to then have the ability to come home, take care of my family, start another life, exhibit the maturation that I learned throughout, and really show what it means to be a transitioning individual. So, like I said, the segue of my book is From Ignorance to Education. It depicts a great portion of my lifestyle, but it's depicting a portion for the purposes of educating any and everybody that is willing to sit back, listen to an alternative opinion, listen to somebody who's had the opportunity to benefit from a second chance, and digest the information from my point of view, to possibly then apply it to their lives however they see fit, or apply it to a circumstance, which I'm hoping, if they was to identify with somebody that was in a similar situation such as myself prior to going to prison, prior to being so misled into the false ideology that comes with believing that materialism is synonymous with success, that you be willing to do anything, thereby give up your own life and take the life of others just for the receipt of some materialistic gains, just for the receipt of money, just for this pursuit of paper, all under the illusion as if that's what bring happiness. So as I speak about a lot of my mistake making, I speak about a lot of my corrective phases. I speak about the process that I went through into recalling certain memories, to then analyze them in a retrospective manner, to hopefully apply a little bit of common sense towards them. And the common sense, since it couldn't have been applied then, to then reroute my life from going in the direction that it went. Thankfully and humbly, I'm glad that it was capable of being applied to my former life. And as I continue to mature, grow, and develop, although it was in the midst of prison, I did so before I even knew that I was going to have an opportunity to actually get the ability for parole eligibility. So thankfully, that maturation process, as it continued to grow, ultimately put me in a position for when an opportunity did come about, I was able to execute, secure my freedom, and here it is. Here I am now I don't even want to say this is just my give back. This is just some of what I have to contribute to the educational process of life, since I spent so much time contributed to the ignorance form of life. And I didn't coin this phrase. I didn't coin this, I don't know if it's an analogy or even the correct word or the term for it, but I heard that when you practice the 5 P's, then it equips you better with life. And the 5 P's is proper preparation prevents poor performance. If I messed it up a little bit, forgive me. You get the gist of it, and hopefully you could ingest it, apply it in a way that you can in your life to really understand the significance of it. Because I absolutely feel you can't prepare to perform the day that you're called to perform. You have to prepare long in advance. You have to implement the process to start preparing for what it is that you want, so that when the opportunity creates itself and comes about, you're capable of executing. And you execute off of skill, and you execute off of instinct, because when it comes time to execute, that's not really when you're trying to figure things out. That's not really when you're trying to get the firm grip on the ball, as I'm comparing it to football, because any slight hit, you're going to fumble. That's where you really need to have a secure grip on what it is that you're trying to execute, what it is you're trying to focus on. So that way, when it's your time for the green light to say go, it's time to execute, you could do that without flaw. So without further ado, I spent the first segment introducing myself to the best of my ability under the circumstances. And as I said in the first and the second episode, as I continue to evolve, this vlog will evolve, whether it's the editing phases, whether it's the delivery, whether it's the method in which I go about speaking about certain subjects, because I'm doing this off the fly. I'm doing this under the most organic premise of trying to get the message out there, not as if I'm marked for time, or not as if, there's some type of dire will to say, hey man, instead of perfecting this process or putting this pretty professional looking package together before you present it to the people, my mind is like, hey man, there's no time like the present. And despite trying to commercialize what it is that you're putting forth, focus more on the content, focus more on what it is that you want to put forth and what it is that you want to present, because you can always correct, edit, and beautify it in its delivery process. But as of right now, I'm kind of going from the head, I'm going from the hip, so to speak, and I'm just getting it out there. I'm getting the information out there, I'm getting my expressions out there, and I'm getting my delivery out there, because what's more important for me at this point, especially being able to use this platform, which is a low cost and low effectiveness, but could be heavily influential for somebody to stumble across it, is I never know who might see these vlogs or hear my words and say to themselves, damn, that's what I needed to hear at this particular time of my life. Because I am a person that searches social media at times a lot for ideas. I don't really do so for the entertainment value, because I'm not a big fan of the majority that comes up on my timeline. I look for ideas, I look for inspiration, I look for education, I look for enlightenment. So when I stumble across something that's insightful to me, it could be 2 words or it could be 10, it could be an hour long, something that captivates me mentally and emotionally enough to sit me down and make me want to digest it and process it, to say, dang, I never thought about it like that. Or what would my life be had I thought about it like that? Or maybe I need to start considering it such as. And with that type of outlook on things, that's what leads me to say, I need to go ahead and get my thoughts out there, man. When I get the chance, however I had the opportunities, however soon it comes, I got to go ahead and present what I could present the best way I can. And, we'll fine tune, edit, and like I said, colorize the packaging of it at a later date, or not at all, because I feel like no matter where I might be a year from now, 5 or 10 years from now, this will be the time when I'll be able to, and anybody who views this will be able to look back and say, this is where he was at in his life at this particular time, and this is how he delivered it to us. He didn't even take the time like he does in some of his paintings, because I used to paint heavily too, but I still can paint a little bit. But it's a lot of preparation that goes into the painting. Like, you see the painting first in your mind after you get the idea, and then you meticulously blend the colors, craft the detail. Then it's of course a whole bunch of going over it again and again to edit it, correct this here, straighten this out there, make this scene look a little bit more realistic, add shadow here. All of those finishing touches before the final presentation, in order for somebody to say, wow, you did a great job. But under those premises, what I'm presenting is something that they already wanted to see. This right here is something that I'm hoping that, despite what anybody and everybody has already encountered, you can only see it my way, through me, the way I give it to you. And as of right now, for the message that I'm trying to offer, it's not really meant to be, the focal point is not on the packaging, and the focal point is not even on the presentation. The focal point is simply on getting the message out there. Say what you need to say when you got the opportunity to say it. Deliver what you can deliver for whoever is incapable of ingesting it, so that it can possibly be the cultivating words or the helpful words that somebody can apply to their lives and say, wow, man, I needed to hear that, or I needed to see that, or I'm glad, homeboy put that energy in the air. So with that being said, left off on the introduction, I read through that, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attempt to read some of the chapter of Ignorance Ain't Bliss. That's the name of the chapter, Ignorance Ain't Bliss. I'm going to attempt to read some of that chapter because I don't remember how many pages it is, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to sit here and read the duration of it. But what I want to do is try to get these videos out as regular as I can, which according to my schedule is more like once a week. And I give it to you what I could give, as I could give, however I could give, because even if I'm not capable of reaching viral status, or whoever might encounter this at whatever point in life, there's going to be a documentary phase where I know that my sons will get the chance to view it, and my sons will be able to see that at 47 years old, when my dad had a few years of freedom, us understanding the story, however they may have been told it throughout the duration of their life, they'll be able to see it as I give it to you right now, as I'm giving it to them. Imagine that they was on the other side of this camera, sitting back, listening to me, saying, wow, appreciate that, Pops, because now as men, we can take that into our lives and possibly utilize it as such. So with that said, let me dig right in. The chapter starts off, ignorance ain't bliss. In the eyes of the law and the ways of the world, ignorance of the law is no excuse. It means that regardless of what you don't know, you are held responsible. We are all accountable for ourselves, the decisions we make, and the way we affect other people. A lot of the rules of life aren't written to be divisive, prejudicial, or exclusive. They become that way in the manner and through the people in which they're applied. Human beings are flawed. Everyone's baggage is messy. No one wakes up every day with the clear, unbiased, we are the world mentality. Life's process, learning curve, and experiences jade us all into however our characters, perceptions, and beliefs are molded. So it is a myth to believe a judge, priest, cop, doctor, lawyer, etc. can and will be what you want or need them to be at all times. If you are a person who chooses to buy into the stereotypical perceptions dictated to you through propaganda, then more power to you. It is your choice. Live in the bubble of your imaginary existence. However, for those who desire to stay woke, then you have to first wake up. You have nothing to gain by being or remaining ignorant. I could interpret the word ignorant in various forms, but whether you read this and choose to adapt a literal, slang, or figurative meaning of the word, it doesn't matter. Every definition applies. You either get it or you don't. For those that don't but want to, they'll question matters and seek out answers. For those that don't care to change their beliefs or opinion, it doesn't matter what I say. They will hold on to the thoughts they had beforehand. I spent a good portion of my life being ignorant, and I will probably go the rest of my life never learning all that I wish I could have. What's stopping me now is time, though, not the willingness to want to change. I wish I didn't spend all that time rotting away in a prison cell, only learning the things I was exposed to amidst that environment. My access was limited because my resources were. Despite my interest in waking up, my reach only extended but so far. Prison rules, restrictions, and staff don't allow you to do but so much. So regardless of how much you desire to inform yourself to certain subjects to become educated, if it didn't conform to the confines of prison, you couldn't do it. There were a lot of books we couldn't have, couldn't pay for them, couldn't smuggle them in, and if you were caught with them, you had to suffer further isolation and punishment. There weren't informational sources that you could turn to in order to question life and confidently trust within the answer. As a result, you suffered. Prison is designed to keep you ignorant to most information, experiences, and understanding. Those compounds would not exist without your ignorance. All of those people who have high-paying jobs to wear their uniforms with badges would not be able to send their kids to college, buy homes, invest in IRAs or 401ks if they were to equalize the ignorance learning curve. But this segment isn't a discussion on equality or justice. It's about ignorance. What you don't know can and will hurt you, or it will hurt someone affected by you. If you care about that statement, then become informed. Seek information in all forms, from whatever means or sources. Become a student of life. Absorb its lessons and realities, not for what you want them to be, but for what they are. Don't look to the sky as an optimist. Don't look to the ground as a pessimist. Look straight ahead as a realist. Describe what you see with your eyes, ears, and find the commonality in common sense. I don't think the world can all operate from the same playbook because we are all different, but we all have the mutual goal of happiness. We all want to leave our house in the morning and be able to return safely back home at night. We all enjoy smiling. We all want whatever it is we want and shun whatever it is we shun. Despite our differences, our common sense can become uniform for the sake of self-preservation, for the sake of evolution. If we were uninformed yesterday, to evolve is to become informed today. I thought of all the many ways I wanted to share my experiences with being ignorant. Some of it was blissfully so, while most was because I didn't have any informational source to turn to. I recall being called a precocious young man. The sentiment was offered as a compliment, as a way of saying I was ahead of my time. But for me, I didn't need to be. I needed the time to absorb life's processes by its natural timetable. Not sooner or later than supposedly so, but during its natural course of allowing a youthful mind the time it needs to grow. Me being ahead of my time had me moving too fast, so fast that I made mistakes, regrettable ones. I recently heard that there are no mistakes in life. What's meant to be will be, and life can either be a learning experience or not. I find that hard to accept conclusively. Yes, there's some truth in that statement, but maybe it's my stubborn will that won't allow me to believe that certain actions aren't or shouldn't be avoided if capable. I'm not a faith-based person, and I won't debate someone else's theology and perceiving how they define life or mistakes. What drives me to write all that I am is because I believe in guidance, intervention, education, and correcting what can be. When I'm drawing a portrait and I notice flaws in my design, I utilize the eraser. I'm not of the belief to presume that everything I draw is correct. Pencils have erasers to correct blemishes. If mistakes weren't meant to be corrected, then life would be chaos, and chaos would be the accepted norm. Why? Because everyone's truth would be permissible, however reckless. Reality shows us that is not the truth. Maybe God doesn't make mistakes, but we as people do. To make less, shun less. There is no bliss in damaging lives. Even as children, when learning to walk, talk, and be, they question everything, mispronounce words, and stumble into objects until they walk straight. It is an innate will to be better, to learn. And for the adults of the world, in order to teach, you have to know. The way of the world as it was last year may have adapted a new version worth learning today. Back in the day never becomes today. It is forever yesterday. Only a factor in the minds and applications of those clinging to a past that no longer exists. Sort of like a Klansman who only wants a white America. That was the norm 50 years ago. It was accepted in most North American states as sound and embraced by the majority of the people responsible for writing the majority of the laws that govern us today. All of those who wanted a white America didn't miraculously change their beliefs. A good portion did, but not all. The portion that changed is an example of evolution. Those that didn't wallow in their blissful pool of ignorance. Whichever category do you wish for your character to exemplify? And this is a caveat. Most of those who believed in racism didn't just wake up one day and decide otherwise. Their beliefs or actions may have changed for a purpose. For purposes a minority will never be privy to. Only a fool believes racism doesn't exist or that its effect isn't prevalent today. Minorities didn't write the majority of the law that affects us. Those in the closet Klansmen still exist. Their actions are more indirect and strategic than marching through the town carrying burning crosses, wearing white robes. They may not still vote for an all-white America, but neither did the slave masters who wanted minorities for the sole purpose of serving their cause. All of the rules and procedures that were implemented years ago for the furtherance of promoting the agenda of the privileged hasn't been erased. A racist believes they are better than you because they believe they're smarter. The only way to prove them otherwise is to denote ignorance in all of its form. This writing is my way of creating one less victim. The days of not knowing no longer exist. I wrote in parentheses because you should always pay attention to the type on any piece of paper. It's typically where something is being expressed unintended for the reader to pay attention to. The devil is in the details, and for those reading that statement for the first time, I intend it to mean this. A broad observation of anything tends to miss the particulars that define whatever it is you're observing. Focus on the portions not easily seen. Most times, that is where you'll find whatever it is you were originally looking for, and overall, you'll appreciate the totality of the sight before you. Now, I said so much in that segment that I can't even begin to touch on every single portion of the details of what I said, but let me give you what I recall being some of the purpose behind why I even wrote it. I spent a lot of time in jail learning the law. It wasn't just about taking Blackstone law courses. It wasn't just about, reading the Black's Law Dictionary. It wasn't just about reading Oxford's version of the dictionary to try to get a full interpretation of what it is to speak law Latin or to consider myself sui juris. It was simply because the more I started articulating my opinions for what I think happened in the details of my conviction, I realized I was speaking another language than the court was speaking to me. And the difference is the court speaks literal. We, as interactive human beings, throughout the traditional raising of the school system, are taught to speak figuratively. We're not taught to speak in the manner where every single word has the specific meaning that we intend for it to mean. Especially for my community, we're taught slang. And slang is easily mixed in and corrugated with the regular English display. So if I say something to you and in the midst of that sentence I say whatever, I'm assuming or expecting you to be capable of filling in the blanks correctly according to what it is I'm saying, even though my whatever could be so ambiguous it actually can change the whole intent of the author's expression. But that is a normality in where I come from. The law doesn't allow you to do that. The law is specific. So that way, a lot of people who don't study the law or never took the time to learn the law, they'll read it and they'll say to themselves, man, they speaking in a different language, or they speaking gibberish, or they're using all of these big words to talk over my head, so I got to hire a lawyer. If I don't hire a lawyer, then I'm doing myself a disservice because I don't really know how they're coming at me. That level of ignorance is okay for people who, quote unquote, have a lot of money, because now the lawyer can work for a ridiculous amount of money under the guise that he's going to give you a superior service according to your bankroll. Sometimes it works for people, not all the time, because you have a lot of people that have money, they sitting in a jail cell. Doesn't mean that it always works for your situation and doesn't apply to every situation. But let me take you back to what I was saying is the purpose behind why I wrote that segment. Growing up, especially once I was in the streets, the belief was you ever get in trouble with the law, you got to have money to have a lawyer. When I got in trouble with the law, and all the guys I was with down the county and fighting cases, and you got to pay the lawyer this, and long as you just pray and pay the lawyer, then your responsibilities for your own case and your own situation was out of your hands, because the only thing you could do is pray, and the only thing you was capable of doing yourself was praying, and the only thing you was capable of doing on behalf of fighting your case was paying a lawyer. I looked at it like this. It was too many people sitting in jail with life sentences still offering the belief that a lawyer was going to be their savior. My thing was, player, you sitting here with a life sentence. Obviously the lawyer ain't work. So are you going to believe that your lawyer was trash, the dude next to your lawyer was trash, and 5,000 other individuals y'all know had life sentence? Everybody's lawyers was trash, but the dudes you know got a 5 to 10, the dudes you know got a 10 to 20, the dudes you know got a 20 to 40, the dudes you know got a 7.5 to 15. All of these dudes had good lawyers and we all had trash lawyers. Well, let's see. Was all of those dudes lawyers who got the longer sentences, were they all public defenders or were they all court-appointed lawyers? The answer became no. So it was like, well, okay, how come if I pay a lawyer $10,000, I end up with a life sentence? Bo over here just paid the lawyer $7,500. They got him a 7.5 to 15. They got him a 10 to 20. They got him a 5 to 10. What the hell? Okay, you know what? Let me tell my people to go find that lawyer over there that got the board of 7.5 to 15 on a 10 to 20. Find out how much he want. We gonna pay him. He's gonna be our savior. So now he tell you 10, 15, maybe $20,000. If you got guys in the street, if you have family that had that money, which in most cases they didn't, you save that money, you give it to the lawyer. You take it to the appellate process, because the appellate process is a much different level of analyzation, what they call standard and scope of review. And the scrutiny is so much higher when it comes to coming off of an appeal, winning an appeal, than it is winning your case. So 9 times out of 10, which I've seen throughout my duration throughout the prison system, most lawyers was losing. Most lawyers was losing. A lawyer would win an appeal 1 out of every 20, 30 times he'll win an appeal. So 1 out of every 20, 30 times, that means 20 people gave this man $10,000 or $15,000. And for every $200,000 he got, he maybe won 1 appeal. That was just the statistics, because if you look at the prison Pennsylvania population, I forgot the number, the actual number, and I'm not going to quote the statistics. I ain't wasting my time doing the math. But you will see it's a ridiculous amount of people that's incarcerated. All had lawyers. A lot of them had paid lawyers, and they all blew trial. And they all blew appeal numerous times because they kept paying lawyers under the belief that this lawyer was going to save them. If the lawyer had, quote unquote, a Jewish name and 15 letters in his name, he was their savior. Definitely not saying that to be anti-Semite. Don't want to start no argument pertaining to that. I'm just saying this is some of the belief system of some of the guys that was in the penal. And once again, let me bring it back forth to even stating why I'm saying so. I started teaching myself the law. I started learning law because my belief system came this. A lawyer goes to school for 4 years in college. He might go to a graduate school or some form of higher education after the 4 years of college. Let's say a lawyer go to 4 years in college and do 2 more years and then do an internship. Most of those lawyers, whether they work into a nice echelon of practicing criminal law, but the point was, the 4 years in college wasn't 24 hours a day. It was for a limited amount of time. You go to school and then you play and party the rest of your day. My thought process was, I'm in jail 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If I study this the way I should have studied it when I was having the ability to go to school, there's no way that I shouldn't become as sharp as, if not better, than any lawyer who did not study this to the capacity that I'm studying it, because my life is on the line. I want to get out of jail. Who's going to fight better or fight harder for me than me? I knew that nobody was going to embrace my case, understand my situation, and put forth the effort to the degree that I was. So, although I knew it wasn't an easy task, but I also looked at it like, what else do I have to do? I'm doing a life sentence. What else can I rationalize occupying my time doing if I'm telling people that I'm talking to on the phone, yeah, man, I'm trying to get out of jail. I'm trying to figure out what I need to do to possibly change my situation. If I'm talking in any degree to this, especially asking those people to hold me down, to maybe send me money here and there, to keep accepting my collect costs. If these people were fighting to keep me alive, how was I going to sit in jail with my hands back and my legs up as if I didn't have a reason to be fighting? This was the only reason I had to be fighting, try to get out of jail. So it was like, learn the law, because all college students, all lawyers, paralegals, they all didn't graduate summa cum laude. They wasn't all at the top of their class. They wasn't all valedictorians. They wasn't all even in the 4 major colleges that only teach constitutional law. That's another quick little tidbit. I don't know if you guys even have an idea of that. All law students and all law classes are not constitutional law. Some give law on a very geriatric basis. So I'm just saying this to say some lawyers were D students, for lack of a better word. They weren't all A students. So you can't expect a person that graduated with straight D's, although he might wear a nice suit, nice shoes, and drive a nice car. It doesn't mean he's as sharp as a Johnny Cochran. It doesn't mean he's as sharp as Robert Kardashian. And you could go down the list of some of the lawyers who their practice, their amount of application was really well, versus some of the lawyers that I've read their briefs, I've seen their presentations, I've seen the degree of legal research they did, and they're bums. Lack of a better word, they're bums. Your people could go down there and take them $10,000 because they passed the bar association, they have a law degree, and they have the right legally to practice law. And they may have won a few cases because the cases they won was garbage. So your family go hear about them winning the cases, go down there and take their hard-earned $10,000-$15,000 to these people. They lose the case, and they wonder why. Because the lawyer is going to take the case under the guise that, yeah, I could get you out of that, no doubt about it. All you got to do is have your people pay me an installment, sign this contract. I got you. I'm gonna get you up off of that. They blow the case. You're out $10,000. Your family now lost all the hope that they had, thinking that, damn, we watched you blow trial. We scraped all this money together, put together for this lawyer. You lost with the lawyer. Man, you ain't never getting out of jail. Stop asking us to waste our money and waste our time on a hope that's just based upon you not wanting to accept reality for what it is you do. So then they come up with that philosophy, hey man, you do the crime, you do the time, and they leave you in the situation. Bringing all that back to the course of why I even said this. I took it upon myself to say, nobody is supposed to fight for you harder than you. Nobody is supposed to care about your situation more than you. So you got breath in your body, you have the ability. They're not stopping you from getting these legal books. Order them. Buy these legal books. Spend your time in the law library. Learn the law. Read these cases. Apply the doctrines. Figure out how to write briefs, motions, petitions. Figure out the schematic of it. Apply it and figure this out. Long story short, I've done so. In doing so, and as I continue to do so, and I'm going to bring this all the way back around to where I mentioned about in the book, where the thought process came from for me to mention why ignorance of the law is not blissful, is because one of the number one statements from the Supreme Court is ignorance of the law is no excuse, meaning you cannot say, I did not know, and that become a valid exception as to why the rules of the state should not be applied against you in whichever form. So whether it's a traffic ticket, whether it's the criminal rules of civil procedure, whether it's the Pennsylvania rules of criminal procedure, whether it's the Purton statutes, whether it don't matter, whether you go to court and it's a family custody hearing, whether it's a divorce proceeding, whether it's somebody suing you because your dog took a poop on their property. The law does not respect ignorance as an ability to say I should be excused from the culpability associated with whatever it is you bringing against me because I didn't know. The reason so, once they made law books in the law library accessible, then that means the same way that you had the ability to purchase anything else, the same way that you have the ability to buy anything, to go into Barnes and Nobles, or now go on the internet and search anything, you're capable of finding the law because it's not hidden. It's not only put in these books and only afforded to the people who pass the bar examination. It's afforded for everybody. So by it being afforded to everybody, ignorance of it is no excuse, especially when you commit the number one crime of trespass. And trespass is not simply being on somebody else's property. That's one form of trespass. The original doctrine of trespass is simply one man inflicting his will upon somebody else unwillingly. That's the law of trespass. That is the reason laws are created, because there would be no laws if everybody stayed in their own house, never moved, never interacted with nobody else, because there's no reason to govern conduct of a person dealing with themselves. That under the law is considered you operating in the private. Once you operate in the public, then there's laws. Those laws are for when one man and or woman operates with another man and or woman And if you inflict your will upon somebody else, that is the law of trespass. Under those laws, there's a governed form of conduct that was developed for the purpose of determining what civilized society deems as correct and non-correct. With all that's thrown into the midst of what I'm saying, I learned the law because I cared about my life. I learned how to read the law. I learned how to comprehend the law. I learned how to apply the law because I cared about my life. Yes, I'm capable of helping some of the people that I could help, and doing work for different people, and for them not to have to go to lawyers. But the point is, I informed myself once I knew ignorance was no excuse. That is some of the premise that it brings me here once again today. As I said, there's so many segments that I plan on speaking about within the book. There's so many segments that I plan on speaking about in furtherance of the book, but in furtherance of my story, in furtherance of the struggle, in furtherance of life, but more importantly, in furtherance of education. So, knowing that was a mouthful, knowing it was a handful, I'm gonna get ready to pause there, man. I'm really, I'm starting to feel the energy of what it is to convey what I feel can be helpful to whomever, however, man. You take it, do what you will. I hope somebody could benefit from it. I hope the information and the knowledge is profitable in any way, shape, or form that you can help yourself or help others, man. I'm going to keep going forward. I'm going to keep giving you guys this installment. And hopefully, man, at the end of the day, we'll be looking back on this come a couple years from now and saying, wow, this was the beginning of where it started, man. And it was so much bigger than the book, but it was rooted in the person that society deemed was worth a second chance, man. And once society gave me that second chance, I was able to now exemplify my belief system of what it is to be a changed man. With that, I thank you for allowing me to give you another installment. Like I said, segment 3, installment 3, part 3. We're going to keep going as it come to mind, man. Bear with me. Appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Like and subscribe, comment, share. You do what you want to feel. If not, keep it pushing no matter what, man. To all out there, peace and love.